You are listening to Fika with Vicky on United Public Radio, 107.7 and 105.3 from New Orleans.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Fika. Today, we're welcoming Lucya Starza. Lucya is an author and eclectic witch. She has written much in the world of nonfiction and magic, as well as contributing to and co-writing for role-playing games. But there's something new in Lucya's writing life, and that's what we're going to be focusing on today. Lucya's first novel, Erosion of Friendship, Dreams, and the Edge of a Cliff, is coming out on May 1st. Yay, Lucya! Way to go. Erosion is a Gothic tale set on the coastline of England, and you can hear the waves crashing as you read it, taking you back to a time when nights got away from you and never seemed quite real the next day, leaving an eeriness that you can't ignore no matter how you try, and chills that have you reaching for a sweater. I loved this page-turning book of a woman by the sea. It wasn't quite what I was expecting, but I think that was the biggest thrill of all. Thank you for the thrills and chills, Lucya, and welcome to Fika.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here.
Oh, you're welcome. It's a joy and a pleasure because I need to know more about this book. It was for a first novel and just fantastic, Lucya. That's I'm wordless. That doesn't happen very often to Vicky. Okay. But could you just tell the audience a little bit about it so they have some insight of what I'm gushing about here?
Okay. It is an eerie Gothic tale. It's set in 1987, which in England was the year of the Great Storm. And it involves a group of 20-something young people who share a house and by the coast and find some bones, which they decide rather than to contact the police, and so they found some bones. They think they're very old bones. They think it's an archaeological site, really. But they decide to have a seance. And, things sort of become a bit strange from there.
They go on from there. Because finding the bones wasn't strange enough to begin with. So this is you, as I mentioned, you've written a lot of non-fiction books. How was it like were you hiding this novel inside of you all of this time, waiting for its time to come out? Or is writing a fiction a new passion for you?
I had always wanted to write fiction, but I have actually worked in publishing, in writing, pretty much since I left university, and it always felt that there wasn't, my mother particularly used to work as a secretary in a publishing company, and she said, there's not much money in writing fiction. There's really not much money in writing fiction. And so I wrote for newspapers, rather actually like the character in my book.
I was going to say.
I worked in publishing. I did editorial work. I wrote a lot of non-fiction books. I wrote for role-playing games. But eventually, when we had the lockdowns and I was stuck indoors and thinking of something, I'm going to write that novel. I am going to write that novel that I've always wanted to write. And I did.
And I'm awfully glad that you did do that. So it is a dream. It is a passion that sat on the burner for practicality reasons. Because, yes, there isn't a lot of writing money in writing fiction. And it's one of those things that grown-ups try to turn you away from. But I'm glad you came back to it. Now, what kind of nonfiction have you written, and how does that experience help you or hinder you with the writing of something like Erosion?
Any sort of writing is practicing writing. Yes, I've written quite a lot books for Moon Books in the Pagan Portals series. So I've written about candle magic, practical candle magic, puppets and magical dolls, scrying, guided visualizations, and a recent one on rounding the wheel of the year. And I think that I also write a blog about witchcraft and magic. And I think that anyone who reads Erosion will see that, I mean, that, you know, there's
searches there.
A lot of the practical knowledge of magic and witchcraft was very, very useful for writing Erosion.
You know, whenever I go to say erosion, I almost end up saying emotion, and I think that's because it's a very emotional book in its way. And I have to say, no, Vicky, it's erosion. But if I do make that slip, you people will understand why I'm making it, because it is. No, you definitely have the knowledge behind you, and that probably made it more of a natural right. You know what I mean? Perhaps a little easier because you felt confidence. There was confidence there in a first novel that other people may not have if they don't know the subject matter so well.
Thank you.
It was I can't say enough. Lucia, so you're just gonna have to sit there and take it. Now, I love stories that have other books referenced in them. Okay. It's like an Easter egg. It's like a treasure hunt. And because your character, much like yourself, is an English major, was an English major, she has graduated. There is an entire reading list in this book, and I love every minute because it's all appropriate and the quotes are appropriate, and it just adds so much for me. And I think a lot of readers are like that. They like to say, "Oh, I liked that book," you know. "Oh, Virginia Woolf, yes, yes." So when you put those things in there, are they your favorites? Are they looking from the view of the characters? What would be one of their favorites from their personality types? Or is it just what works in the moment?
It's a mixture. It is a mixture. I've got both song titles, all the chapters are song titles, all the chapter headings are song titles. You're not allowed to put quotes from songs in books.
Yes,
you can use the names of songs. You can't do more. So that's I was limited.
Okay, let's go stop this right now. I understand that this is a law and I would never do it. But the inside of me fights that because these are anthems of people's lives, especially when we go back to the 70s and the 60s and they've listened to them their whole lives. And I find it very unfair because it would really contribute to the stories. Okay, Lucia, we're back.
Okay. Yeah, some of them are my favorites. I particularly like the M.R. James ghost stories. I'm a huge fan of M.R. James ghost stories, and I think that anyone who reads Erosion will see there's a bit of influence there from M.R. James. But it's a group of modern young people rather than a fusty early 20th century academic who is finding an archaeological site and doing something dodgy.
So you definitely went with the characters of the characteristics of the characters when choosing, but there is a lot of Lucia's favorites in there as well and stories. So it just depends on what was happening there. Now, as we said, a part of Gothic novels is the atmosphere. I mean, that is paramount. You can't get those chills and those shivers, that sense of eeriness without it being a part of the whole picture. Now, in your other life as a nonfiction writer, you've written a book about guided meditations. You have guided meditations in the rounding of the year. Also, you wrote about them in The Weathering of the Storm. And I just want to do a side note here saying, I think that is a fabulous book. It's like $1.26 here. And if you are alone, if you're not feeling well, if you're feeling separated, or have money issues or whatever, this book has several different authors from the Moon Books publishing world, and every chapter might not appeal to you, but some of those chapters are going to appeal to you. So I suggest it for 99 cents, $1.26, whatever it is where you live. It is well worth the money. So you say that these things help you to learn to problem solve, to become a better meditator, to whatever it is you're trying to do. And I'm wondering, because sometimes when I read books, I like to put myself in that world. I'm wondering if this has helped you with the fiction writing to create the atmosphere, to put yourself in that world.
Actually, I do use that process sometimes, but I didn't really with this particular book. I certainly have done with other types of writing, particularly poetry, and with art and crafting things. I love crafting things. But actually, with Erosion, I didn't really use meditation before I wrote the chapters. I had quite a firm framework in my mind before I started writing, and I was visualizing it quite clearly, so I didn't actually need to. But it is certainly something, particularly for poetry, it is something that I have done.
So it just depends on the project and and where you are with it. Now you said that you had a very firm idea, a plot. You plotted for this. You kept it under control. And it's not on the list, but do you mind if I talk a little bit about your nano experience? About
Go ahead.
Okay, so when we were in the green room, we were discussing nano. And what is it you said then your experience was, Lucya?
Well, for nano, you are expected to write the first draft of a novel in a month, and it's a lot of work. And I have got the first draft of a second novel written, which I wrote during a nano. But you're using every kind of way of getting inspiration, because you sit down every day and say, I've got to write thousands of words. What am I going to write? And yes, I would use everything. I tarot cards, oracle cards. I would. There's one point when a character is clearing out an old woman's house after she's died. Yeah, it's another ghost story. And I was thinking, what am I going to write? And I was literally just going around my house and listing all the things I could see that she was clearing out of this house. So yes, I'll do that. I would do meditation before that. I listen to music actually quite a lot to get inspiration. So yes, I've tried a huge number of things. It's a very different way of working, Nano, and I prefer the more slow and steady approach. Really, I find it easier.
I'm hearing you, because you are, if you're a person that likes to take it bit by bit, you are left with quite a large amount of words to sort afterwards. And I love that you said you use tarot cards, because I think they're fantastic. There's the whole life journey there in front of you. So you're like, and what is she up to today? So I think that's a fantastic use of inspiration. So now I've also lately, it seems popular on writers' Facebooks, etc., to put down a tape that they listen to for writing, or um a type of music, a soundtrack, ambiance. I mean, there's ambiance for everything. If you're writing a word, reading a Sherlock Holmes book, there's like Sherlock Holmes world ambiance that you can put in. Now, did you have nature sounds, or as you mentioned in book she collected, did you collect songs from 1987, or was there any musical input into your book?
Yeah, but it was more to get myself into the mood for writing it. I was listening to a lot of 80s music on Spotify, but I was mostly listening to it while I was, say, doing the housework or something like that, or at other times. I actually, when I'm writing, I prefer to be in a quiet space. When I'm editing, I can listen to music, and often do. But yeah, I'm someone who needs a bit of a quiet space for writing.
Okay, so one, 80s music is always the best to cling to, and two, so I'm in on that. Two, why do you think, if it's not that silence works best for you? Is it the distraction of the music?
Yeah, yeah, it is. I find it too. I'm either just completely tuning it out, or it's too distracting. So I might as well not have it on.
Yeah, no. People have different. Do you have no? Do you have like nobody making noise in your house or anything? Are you?
Actually, I do live in quite a quiet cul-de-sac that backs onto a school. But when I was writing Erosion, the kids weren't there, so there was no.
So sometimes I think of the earphones as protection against all of that when we can't control all of those things. So I think we touched on this before, but so you like Gothic novels yourself, and ghost stories, and it's separate from horror stories, really. Do you want to give your take on why you think ghost stories are separate than horror stories? Once again, I'm just throwing this at you.
Yes, I mean, I think horror is. I think there's a huge crossover. I mean, I think that Gothic stories can be horror stories, or they can be quite gentle stories. I mean, I think Gothic can cross everything from romance, and I mean, originally the Gothic stories there was a huge amount of kind of romance in them. I don't necessarily mean lovey-dovey romance, but and a huge amount of nature too in the original Gothic stories. I think horror. It. Yeah. I mean, I think that a ghost story can be a horror story, but a ghost story doesn't have to be. But I think they've got this kind of it sets up a kind of a spooky atmosphere, an uneasy atmosphere, a kind of an atmosphere where things seem a little strange, but they aren't. There isn't necessarily going to be a horrible monster jumping out from behind the curtains with a big knife.
You're just never quite sure.
Yeah,
You
yeah, there
can't.
might be. You are never quite sure. I mean, I do like horror novels. Yeah, I
No,
like horror
it's not
novels.
it's not putting, I mean, we live without shame reading here. So whatever you could read, you're our kinds of readers. I think there's too much of that going on. Oh no, you're not reading that. Oh yes, I am. Uh, so it does, but I think it is there during Erosion. There were times that I was like, "Oh my goodness, is this going to happen? Is that going to happen?" Like it was set up for some real big things to happen, and
Mm,
so you are on your edge of the seat with emotion, and it is erosion of your emotions moving all over the place as you try to figure out what's going on. So I mean, it could be that reading is like sports and that to other people. Some people love that head on football, like in your face, and
mm.
other people are just, I think I'll have just a little stroll through the forest and I'm good with that, right? So it's what, but yeah, I do love a good ghost story myself, and the atmosphere around that. Now, first of all, if we get into a little bit about your nonfiction writing, because there's a lot of it, and we
Mm.
can't fit everything with Lucia in an hour. Okay, so we're gonna have to come back. But you have said, we've talked to a lot of witches here because I think it's important for people to know what witches really do in the real world. They write Gothic novels. Okay. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They
they,
write Gothic novels. They have cats. Obviously, they have cats. They like chocolate, but they're not allowed to eat it because the doctor tells them not to.
they don't have that kind of magic. Unfortunately, because that would be a great skill set to have. You call yourself an eclectic witch, and that means that you pull things from wherever they fit
Yeah.
for you. What are some of your things in your eclectic witch list that you really like to add to your belief system?
Okay. Well, I mean, I will say that I am actually a Gardnerian Wiccan. I'm initiated as a Gardnerian Wiccan, and I was many decades ago. And I absolutely, I think it was a really, really useful training. But my interests are very wide, and I haven't been in a Wiccan coven for many years. I more often attend a Druid Grove these days, to be honest. If I want to meet up with some friends to celebrate a festival. But really, it was writing my blog, and I've been writing a Bad Witches blog for about 17 years now, and it forced me to write about a lot of different things, because you can't really just write about the same thing every day. So it can cover everything from going out and seeing what flowers are blooming and taking a photograph of them, and then it prompts me to do some research and find out what's the folklore, what spells have they been used for, and writing about it, or going to visit a location and writing about the folkloric history of that, or going to an event.
So it always comes back to the writing for you and a naturally curious sense about yourself, right? Like I will be an eclectic witch because that gives me more to write about. It's always about the no, I'm not. I think that's wonderful. It's but yes, no, there is a lot, but it also explains what the plants. I mean, just in nature itself, there is a lot with so many plants, with so much folklore behind them, to keep it straight and to yeah, no. So yeah, I understand. It's completely understandable. And I think people out there too, that your major passion, your major interest is going to influence the other interests that you gain with that. Now I wanted to talk about, it's just out, which to me seems like just yesterday. I don't know, time is moving fast. Rounding the Wheel of the Year just came out in November. So it's your latest nonfiction work. But that is a big thing because there's a whole story behind the rounding the wheel itself, the year's wheel. Because of, people think that it's ancient. It's not so ancient. But I love the wheel of the year. I love that as opposed to the calendar, because it does work with the seasons and it is more natural. So we can do that another day. And you can talk about one of your other books or the Poppets, because there was dolls in Erosion, or do you want to talk about it at all?
I'm happy to talk about any of my books, really. But I mean, yes, with the Wheel of the Year, it's called Rounding the Wheel of the Year, because it's really influenced by my blog, because as I say in the book, sort of every day has its own magical energy. I think that it's very easy the 8th Wheel of the Year festivals, it's very convenient. It's got a lovely symmetry. You know when you're going to meet up with your friends. You know roughly what you're going to be celebrating. But there's all the other days, and there's a lot going on. I mean, there's other customs, other ancient customs and other modern customs. Like this Saturday, I'll be celebrating Earth Hour, which is very much a modern custom and very important. It's a very important environmental message. And to me, that's actually probably as important as celebrating the spring equinox. And so I think that the whole focus of my book is showing a lot of other things that are happening, as well as
And
the
some of them are
festivals.
new,
Mm,
and some of them are old.
yeah.
And I'm going to make a confession to the world. I completely missed spring equinox this year because it was on the
Oh,
19th. And I was busy. I'm thinking 20, 21st, 23rd, you get to it. Life gets very busy. But when you take on things like this, there's always something there. You're not going to miss out on things. There's always, excuse me. There's always, so I love books like this, and I love your passion, because listening to you talk is like reading the first chapter of your book or the introduction. I can't remember which, but I'm like, yes, yes, she wrote that. There was no artificial anything involved, because the passion in which you speak, it comes out while you're writing. So that was just lovely. But it is, and there's some great ideas in there, and each one has a guided meditation, um has, some candle magic. There's things to do for the entire month and the entire time. And I I can keep up with the wheel of the year better than other things, because it is set off in seasons, and it is equal bits, and it gives, like you said, a symmetry to things, because that is that. But it's also, life gets very busy in the real world, and it's nice to be able to say, okay, you missed this one, Vicky, but you can hit the next,
yeah.
right?
Mm,
and there's no great things. So, yes, I thought it was a great book as well. But we have a question from Brian. So he is here today. I was beginning to wonder. Congratulations, Lucia, on creating your first fiction book. Did you find the process of writing fiction different than nonfiction or role playing games?
uh, definitely, because with the first thing I'm going to do when I'm writing a non-fiction book is do oodles and oodles of research. And I definitely have to do some research if I'm writing fiction, but mostly the first thing I'm going to do when I'm writing fiction is come up with an idea for it, and sort of like work out a framework of roughly what's going to happen with this plot. So that it's very much more creative writing fiction than non-fiction.
Do you think you were, I mean, this is a good book. Do you think you were ready, like, putting out the fiction is all your own creativity, right?
Mm,
So it is very much like a baby, even more than I would imagine nonfiction would be, because those are facts, and you have resources, and you have references in the back to say this is what is right.
mm.
No such thing with fiction. Do you think putting out all those other books before made you braver about putting out a fiction book? Because, I mean, that's one of the things that stop people the most, getting it out there.
Yeah. Definitely, absolutely. Um, I mean, my first Pagan Portals book, which was Candle Magic, I was so nervous before the launch. I was just, oh my goodness, I was nervous. And I it does that gets easier. That gets easier. Um, you especially because if you've got books behind you and you know that they've sold quite well and that they've got good reviews, um,
It builds the confidence.
it builds the confidence. Yes.
So you have to do to get that confidence.
Mm,
And I've learned a lot from watching you all your writing adventures, in like just heading for the next thing, not because you put them out, and you put them out productively, like all of the books that keep coming. I can't read that fast, please stop, everyone. but but all the books that keep coming, it's like you write the book and you move on to the next. You
yeah.
don't sit there like wallowing and thinking, are people going to like this or whatever? You move ahead because that's
Yeah.
part of the process. And it's so fantastic to watch and to learn from. Like, Vicky, forget that show, move on to the next one, right? It's just, you're all such a great example for that. So thank you for that. Brian, thank you for commenting because I was beginning to think I was all alone. No, there are people here, but and Lucia. So I think Brian was very enthused when I told you were coming on for a specific reason. And that is the role playing game writing. He actually has, when I mentioned it, a copy of the Call of Cthulhu. Cthulhu?
Cthulhu.
Yes,
Mm.
okay. And it came, "Oh, you mean this?" And I said, "Yes, she read some of the supplements and stuff." And this is something I've been wanting to get in out of interest when it comes to writing and that, because it is writing. And even if someone's a dungeon master or um the the storyteller or whatever they're called in that particular game, they have to do a lot of writing themselves
Oh
to
yeah.
come up with these things. It's an excellent creativity source,
Mm.
like, to do that. And you have contributed to and and co-written some of the supplements
Mm.
for the Call for Cthulhu. I'm going to keep saying it until I get it right. And the Rivers of London series that is,
The Rivers of London role playing game, yes,
yes,
which is based on
Ben.
the books by Ben Aronovich. Mm.
Thank you. I didn't write that down. That was silly of me. But you, of course, knew. So I'm thinking they don't just put ads in the paper. Maybe they do. How to, want to write a role playing game. But now that I understand your history in the publishing industry, I'm thinking you might have had an in
I
to get
didn't
involved in
know.
this. No?
My first things that were published for Chaosium were in the early 1990s. I wrote the London guidebook for the London source book for the Call of Cthulhu role playing game, and I wrote some scenarios with actually my boyfriend at the time. Although I did most of the work.
Well, isn't that the way? I mean, you almost didn't have to say that. And if he did more work, he would still be here. So he wouldn't be at the time. So,
But yeah, no, I wrote a few scenarios. There was something in Strange Eons and Before the Fall. So yes, I did quite a lot of writing for that. But no, I didn't have an in at all. I like playing role playing games, and I submitted a proposal and it got accepted, and I was like, oh, So yes, I pretty much the same as submitting something to any other publisher out of the blue. You send in a proposal and hope they like it.
so whatever it is you like, obviously Lucia is a woman of passion and she follows through with them. And so if there's anything out there that you think is interesting or whatever, just slip off. I mean, it's so much easier to send letters now with emails and stuff. Go find an email and see what's kicking, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, it's a different type of writing, I'm thinking. Did you now you're saying you wrote with your boyfriend or whatever, but yeah, I they talk about group writing or whatever. Did you still do this writing primarily on your own in your case?
I have, yeah. I mean, it varies. Some things will be very much a collaborative project. Certainly, when I was working on the Rivers of London, the role playing game, because it was actually the role playing game itself, and different people were writing different sections, and it all had to be approved by Ben. So, yes, I mean, we had editorial meetings and we'd discuss what we were doing, and all of our ideas had to be approved, and then you'll go away and write it and you'll send off what you've written, and then it would come back with lots of changes, because everything has, with a role-playing game, everything's got to conform to the rules, and you've got to use the right terminology. So, you know,
You
for
have to
example,
work inside of a framework someone else has already
yeah,
created.
yeah.
And was that difficult?
That, I mean, that is the that's probably the difficult part about it. Whereas if you're writing a novel, you can just sort of, you know, let your imagination go wild and write what you want to write, pretty much. But it's a lot more structured. So yes, fitting it within the structure, you might have an idea and you think, how am I going to fit that idea inside that structure? So yes, it is that's a difficult part of it.
And do you find that helped with structuring like the fiction writing? Like you give yourself then a
Mm.
set of rules and
I think so. Yes, I'd say it does. And of course, the thing with it, writing a role-playing game scenario is that once it's like it's not just other people reading the story. You're giving the idea. It's a bit more like a guided visualization that people take it away
yes.
and then imagine something completely different in their own head, and will take it to in a way that you hadn't anticipated, which is actually quite the joy of it, really.
It is. I mean, people they don't understand how much imagination and creativity and working together as teams when they're just. I just think role playing games are fantastic for anyone that has a leaning towards that, because see, this answers a question. Author Brian Granger, who's a regular, and so I sometimes I'm curious about him. Brian's not so big on the social scene, so I'm like, who is he playing this game with? And now I have the answer. He just picked up the Call of Cthulhu, starter pack, and he's looking forward to playing. They have solo games. Who knew? Do you write solo adventures for these games?
That they
Have you?
exist. I haven't personally written one yet. It's not to say I wouldn't, but I haven't yet.
So you're still writing role playing games to this day? Yes.
Yes.
And you do that under the name Lucya. And I didn't ask you how to pronounce this because I didn't think we were going to say. Tell us the name you're right. What was that?
Sharknovsky. Okay. Lucya Starza. Starza is a family name, but Sharknovsky is my father's name is Sharknovsky. So my early writing, certainly when I was working on newspapers, writing articles, and when I was writing for Chaosium, or still write for Chaosium, everything's published as Lucya Sharknovsky. But when I wanted to write my pagan books, there were two reasons for using a pen name, and one was Sharknovsky is really difficult to pronounce unless you
And spell.
And the other one that I wanted something that I was doing other work, and I didn't necessarily want my other employers to know that I was writing pagan books. I mean, there are reasons why you wouldn't necessarily want that, and so I used a pen name. But Starza is a name in my family.
Well, thank you for explaining all that, because often people will say, this is my pen name, and then I'll be like, but what's your real one? Like, you can't start a mystery like that and not let me know. And yes, I can understand that it would be nice to keep your two different worlds apart, for many reasons, which hopefully are becoming less and less of reasons as time goes on. Robin is here. Robin says, hi, Lucya. Really enjoying listening in. Sorry to be off topic, but you mentioned candle magic. What is this exactly? I have heard this term a number of times throughout the years. Thank you, Robin. And silly you still thinking we have a topic here at Fika. You can get off. Lucya?
Well, I think it's a very essential, basic part of magic. I mean, if you think about it, if you light candles on a birthday cake and make a wish, and you blow out all the candles, that is basically candle magic. If you go to a church and you light a candle to and pray for the deity to help you, you are essentially using candle magic. It's basically a focus for sending your wishes out into the universe in some form.
We blow out candles on our birthday cakes.
Yeah.
Sending
Yes.
them. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, but I mean, my book Candle Magic really goes into how you can do more, put more symbolism into just, you could just light a candle and make a wish. That's fine. But you can pick what color candle you use. You can anoint it with scented oils. You can choose which day of the week you're going to light your candle. You can use things of other correspondences that you put on your altar around the candle. Different sizes of candle will burn for different lengths of time and have different uses. So yeah, I mean, that's my book goes into that kind of thing.
More details.
Yeah.
And it's also the element of fire that you can incorporate into your altar as that.
A candle technically it sort of has all the elements, because
air too,
like,
yeah.
There's fire, there's air in the heat rises from it in the air. The liquid wax is kind of a water
Fluid.
and the solid candle is earth. So yeah.
Okay, so you just need a candle on your altar. But if I may, can I go into, say, for the spring equinox that just ended so in rounding the wheel of the year, right? I got that right. Okay, so rounding the wheel of the year is suggested that you take 2 candles of 2 different colors, and so that you have balance, and then allow them to burn down evenly. Creating that balance even more, Robin. So that's something you can do, just stopping at the store and picking up 2 different kinds of candles. And they don't have to be big. It could be 2 birthday candles, right?
Yeah.
If you only have so much time.
Yeah.
If yeah. So, and candles are pretty and nice, and I learned was that in the book? I learned that they can be all the elements just in one. I have thought air and fire, but I didn't really think about the others. So good stuff. Good question, Robin. Anything is questionable. We don't have specific topics at all. So we were talking a little bit about, are you working on, let's take this one subject at a time. So you're still working on different games and the role playing writing, which I think is fantastic. I did look up the one and found it on a distributor, a market that does not sponsor Fika with Vicky. So I'm not going to mention their name, but I did find the one under your other name. So they're out there. And have you just done those 2 role playing games, or have you worked on any others?
I did. I wrote some stuff for Dungeons and Dragons ages ago. There was a scenario and a supplement for the Port of Ravens Bluff really a long while ago. I wrote another scenario for a company that then folded before the thing ever came out, which is a bit sad. But yes, and I actually worked on a role-playing magazine for quite a while, Games Master.
Oh, this is all very, very exciting, Lucia. So she is the perfect example. If you're out there and you're a gamer and you love playing, try writing a scenario. Let them know that you're out there. And apparently it pays better than fiction. Is this what you said earlier?
Well, not really. No, I'd say that writing for role-playing games, unless you're really, I'd say it's kind of the same as writing a novel. Unless you are like,
there are people that make
very
a living.
Lucky, it's not. You write it for love,
and you write it for passion. And in the end, it costs a lot of money to purchase some passion. So if your passion is just writing, it's a cheap thrill, right?
Yeah. I mean, you earn some money from it, but it's not.
Yeah, she still has to do magic. So, what is your definition of magic, Lucia? Since you're so open to questions, or is that a hard one?
Actually, I think Alistair Crowley had it down pat. What was it? It was the art and science of making change by force of will, something like that. And that's quite simple, and yeah,
but no, it does, because it's magical to turn a bad day into a good one. That takes will, and that takes, determination to do that. Yeah, transformation, I always thought was the biggie in it. But yeah, no, that's perfect. See that? She can answer any question even if she wasn't prepared for it. Right off the job. Right off.
well,
So,
Alistair Crowley did it.
yes, but you knew the quote. You're the queen of quotes in your fiction and on the show. So, still writing role playing games. Do you have a nonfiction project coming up?
I'm actually in between non-fiction projects. I want to do another Pagan Portals book, and I've been umming and ahhing over a few ideas. At the moment, I've been doing ever such lots of stuff with about amulets and charms and talismans, and I've been teaching some workshops. I'm at the Welcome Collection tomorrow, where it's in London. It's a free library and museum, and they've got Charmed, the Amulet Takeover Day, happening tomorrow. So if you happen to be in London tomorrow and you fancy going to some talks on amulets, talismans and charms, and it won't cost you anything, or make a corn dolly along with me, then pop along there and just turn up tomorrow.
And that would be a great subject for a book, because you can get into symbolism and all of those things. So that's a possibility, but we're not going to hold her to that. She's just letting us in on her thought process at the moment.
Yeah, pretty much. Yes, where I'm what I'm doing at the moment, but it's more talks and workshops.
And always your blog, which is another more writing. Like, how much writing can we expect from you? The blog, the blog is taking at Bad Witch, and it's going to scroll around here in a little bit. The Bad Witch blog. It should come up if you just search that, right? badwitch.co.uk.
www.badwitch.co.uk.
Yeah, that's pretty simple. And so, as far as the fiction, we're back to, I know Brian is here, so we're going to talk about this Rimo thing again. Collect it. So, the next book you're working on is one that you wrote through Nano, right? The one that you're working on right now. And so you wrote your 50,000 words, and then all of a sudden you had 50,000 words, which was a lot was overwhelming. See, Brian, I'm not the only one that gets overwhelmed by these 50,000 words, but Lucy is a little braver and has ventured into taking care of hers. So, so it's another sort of gothy ghost kind of tale.
It is, yeah. It's set in South London, in the Crystal Palace area. It's the area that I live in. And it is a story of a woman who's just been bereaved, and suddenly, and she's writing a journal to her husband, even though he's dead, and she's writing about what happens, and she is convinced that his death was not natural, even though medical examination said, he died of a heart attack. But she's convinced that there was something strange going on, and she is in the house that they lived in, which was the house that had belonged to his parents before him. And she's going through the things in the house and finding strange things and clues and suggestions that there have been strange things happening in this house for a long while.
And so it stirs her on this adventure
And
known.
it is a ghost story.
Yes, another ghost story, which I love and will be waiting for, but not pushy about it because I have no right to be pushy about these things. Lucia's books can be found everywhere, but on any online distributor, pretty much they're there in both hard, soft cover and ebooks. Whichever works for you, it doesn't matter. It's the read that counts. Robin, I know you like to ask questions about magical things. So if you have any more questions about them, otherwise, I'm just going to go on with my own questions. So get them in there. So the poppets. The poppets and that was in there. How I haven't read that one yet. So how do like I know that we all know about like voodoo dolls or things like that. But how can they help in a benevolent way? I mean,
Well, they often have been. I mean, one of the
yes.
very, very earliest spells recorded on a Mesopotamian clay tablet was a cure for dog bite. And if you were bitten by a dog back in ancient Mesopotamia, you went down to the riverbank and you made a little clay model of the dog that bit you, and you rubbed it on the wound. I mean, don't do that nowadays; not a good idea. But then you left it out on a wall to dry in the sun. And the idea was that by kind of sympathetic magic, so your dog bite would dry up cleanly and heal. So they have been used for, healing and for good luck purposes. I mean, I think a lot of, there are lots of examples of like good luck dolls and things like that. But yes, they have definitely also been used for cursing. The Museum of Witchcraft and Magic in Cornwall, they have a lot of magical dolls in their collection. About 80% are cursed dolls and about 20% are for healing or good luck. They actually don't even think that that is representative of the general ratio of nice dolls to bad dolls, because if somebody finds a cursed doll in the house that they've just bought, say, they don't want to keep it. It's horrible. So they take it to the Museum of Witchcraft and Magic and say, do something with it. But if they found something that seemed like a good luck charm, they're more likely to actually keep it and say, oh, this is a good luck doll that that is in the house. And there's one example that was in my puppet workshops, we actually make something a bit like this. And one was, it was on exhibition in Spellbound, an exhibition of magical objects in that was on in Oxford. And in a chimney in a house in Scotland, a little doll was found. It made of cloth, a little of cloth wound in string, with passages from the Bible that was quite plainly put there for protection. So it was put there to protect the house, and is an example of a protection doll. And in my puppet classes, we make little protection dolls a bit like that.
I like that. I do. I mean, dolls would be the way to go for cursing or just scaring people because dolls can be very frightening, but they're also very comforting. So this is why I wanted to know, and I can see that and you have like worry dolls to take your worries away, and so there is a history, but that makes sense that the percentages are I'm sorry, I started to read. Anyways, the percentages are shown as they are because people do want to get rid of bad things. Robin did come through. I told him, get him in there. I'm listening, Vicky. What are your thoughts, Lucia, on what they call night terrors or sleep paralysis?
Oh, it is actually really scary. I have experienced sleep paralysis myself, and it is quite scary. Luckily, I had heard about it, so when it happened to me, it was like, okay, I know what this is. But yes, you wake up in the night and you can't move, and you kind of it's like you wake up from a nightmare, but you're awake, but you're still in the nightmare and you can't move. And often people feel that their chests are being crushed. And traditionally it was like there was this night hag sitting on your chest, crushing you and, crushing the wind out of you. But yes, I mean, to me, it felt like there was some dark figure walking around in the room. But actually, when I'd had this and I was talking to someone and they said, well, actually, sleep paralysis isn't always scary. And one of the things that actually is in Erosion, there's the character wakes up and imagines there's something on the bed. I'm not going to tell you what, but they imagine.
Yeah, don't go too far. You have to buy the book, Robin.
But when I was a child, I woke up and I was convinced that there was a cat curled up on my bed. I could feel the cat and I could hear the cat purring. And when I looked down, there was no cat there. And in my mind, I'd always thought, oh, it was a ghost cat. It was a ghost cat. And someone said, well, it was actually probably sleep paralysis. So I don't know. Did I have a ghost cat? Was it sleep paralysis? It wasn't scary. It wasn't scary. So, yeah, I mean, I think it does feel really, really real. And I know people who say, well, every experience of that kind is just sleep paralysis. And other people say, well, sometimes it really is a ghost. And so, I think certainly in fiction, you can take it either way. And even in real life, you can, you can believe what you want to believe. You can believe one or the other.
That's the whole point. Yeah, no, you can. I must say, Lucya, this is my first time talking with Lucya, and she is like so ready with answers and concise, and you can tell you worked for a newspaper and that you are curious because you just have it all. And this is just, it's wonderful. It's like, it's blowing me away.
Oh, thank you.
Brian says, I've experienced night paralysis a couple of times with something bad crouching next to me. I think you'll find that being a writer of fiction can be scarier. Deadlines and writer's block. Oh my.
Yeah. Honestly, I had this dream once that this crack appeared in my wall, and I could, behind the crack in my wall, I could see this demonic creature. I thought, oh, that's okay. It's only a rift for another dimension. I can close that. I'm glad it's not subsidence. That'd be really expensive.
That's it. You can make those things go away without the dollars and cents. And Brian loves to write, but he always finds it the most frightening thing of all. Because, I mean, that's what it is, writing, right? A love-hate relationship. And if you're as passionate as you obviously are, you're stuck with it. So you have. So I would say your advice to transform someone who's a non-writer into a writer magically is just work and practice and just keep going, right? That's
yeah, but I mean, I do think that we were talking earlier about doing guided visualizations to kind of get ideas. I think using that kind of thing can really, really help.
To see the book, see yourself in a place where it's
even
finished.
though I didn't use it for Erosion, I think that if you
let me down,
Lucya. People say, I don't know what to write, but I haven't got an idea. And I do think if you haven't got an idea, then doing something like a guided visualization can help you get the idea.
And buy a tarot deck, because you have all the archetypes of all the characters there, and you can just say, and what is, so and so, do a reading for them, like
and you can just do like really quickly make up a story as you go along, like card after card. So, and once upon a time there was a prince, and he traveled to a foreign land, and he found a such and such, and kind of just do that really quickly. It's like, oh my goodness, I've got a story.
And so now we have to do a show in which Lucya tells us stories from the tarot deck. She goes around for examples. No, I won't make that. So I just want to make sure that we've covered everything here. There's nothing specifically coming out, so you have time to catch up on all she has out there. Thank goodness. Thank you for taking a break, Lucia. There's so much to read. And that you can find her books. The nonfiction are called, I did write that down, Rounding the Wheel of the Year, Scrying, Guided Meditations, Puppet and Magical Dolls, Everyday Magic, and Candle Magic, as well as you'll want to take Erosion. Summer's coming up, so for those really hot days when you've just had it with the heat, put the air conditioner on, make yourself a cup of tea, and pretend that you're out with the storms blowing. The biggest storm, the big storm of England, and go away to that world. Lucia, thank you so much. It was fantastic meeting you. You were just
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're just wonderful. Take care and good luck on all your many pursuits and have fun. I can't catch a flight, but have fun on Saturday with the workshop. I really would like to be there. So you take care, and I'll just say goodbye. Okay. For the rest of you, it was, you know what? I'm always going to pick up the book when someone says they have a story about a woman by the sea. It seems to be the right thing to do. And I will see you all next week. Until then, may your coffee be hot and your story sweet. Thanks for listening, everyone.